Ma'am, stop right there. Place the briefcase on the ground and put your hands flat against the wall.
Pay attention to the woman in the navy suit stepping out of the silver sedan. Her name is Simone Duvall. She is 32 years old, a senior policy analyst at the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division. She has driven 4 hours from Washington, D.C. to testify as an expert witness in a federal discrimination case in Richmond, Virginia. The leather briefcase in her hand contains 3 years of research. The hearing is scheduled for 9 o'clock a.m. It is 8:47 a.m. on Tuesday, October 15th. Now, pay attention to the two police officers approaching from the courthouse steps. Within 90 minutes, Simone Duvall would be in handcuffs. Within 6 hours, her fingerprints would be in the system. Within 12 hours, the video would have 17 million views. This was not a routine security check. It was something else entirely. Simone Duvall was meticulous. She had graduated summa cum laude from Howard University, earned her law degree from Georgetown, and spent 7 years building a reputation as one of the DOJ's most thorough researchers. Her work on employment discrimination cases had influenced policy in 6 states. She was not someone who made mistakes. That morning, she had dressed carefully. Navy suit, cream blouse, professional heels. She looked exactly like what she was, a federal government attorney arriving to do her job. The parking garage adjacent to the courthouse had been full. She'd parked 3 blocks away in a public lot, fed the meter for 4 hours, and walked toward the building with her briefcase and her phone. The October morning was cool and bright. Downtown Richmond was quiet. She reached the courthouse steps at 8:49 a.m. That's when Officer Marcus Delacroix called out to her. Officer Delacroix was 41 years old, a 12-year veteran of the Richmond Police Department. His partner that morning was Officer Isaiah Petros, 34, 8 years on the force. Both were assigned to courthouse security detail. Both were white. Delacroix asked Simone where she was going. She told him she had testimony scheduled in federal court, courtroom 4B, the Hargrove v. Richmond Metropolitan case. She offered to show her identification. Delacroix told her to stop right there. What happened next was captured on 3 separate cameras: courthouse security, a nearby traffic camera, and the phone of a law student named Marcus Chen, who happened to be walking past. The footage shows Simone Duvall standing on the courthouse steps, briefcase in one hand, reaching for her credentials with the other. The footage shows Officer Delacroix stepping closer, hand moving to his belt. The footage shows Officer Petros circling behind her. The footage shows Simone asking what the problem was. The footage shows her being told to turn around and place her hands on the wall. Simone Duvall complied. She was a lawyer. She understood escalation. She placed her briefcase down carefully, turned, and put her hands against the stone wall of the federal courthouse. Officer Delacroix asked if she had any weapons. She said no. He asked where she worked. She said the Department of Justice. He asked if she had identification. She said yes, in her jacket pocket, her federal ID and her bar card. He told her not to move. At 8:52 a.m., Officer Petros called for backup. The call was logged with Richmond Dispatch. The reason given: suspicious person at courthouse entrance. By 8:54 a.m., 2 more officers had arrived. Simone Duvall had still not been allowed to show her identification. The attorney scheduled to meet Simone that morning was Catherine Lang, lead counsel on the Hargrove case. Liang had been waiting in the courthouse lobby since 8:30 a.m. When Simone didn't arrive by 8:55, Liang called her cell. No answer. Liang walked to the entrance. She saw 4 police officers surrounding a woman in a navy suit. She recognized Simone immediately. Liang identified herself as an attorney and asked what was happening. Officer Delacroix told her to step back. Liang asked if Simone was being detained. Delacroix said she was being questioned. Liang asked on what grounds. Delacroix said that was police business. At 8:58 a.m., Simone Duvall was placed in handcuffs. The stated reason: failure to comply with a lawful order. The actual reason would become the subject of a federal investigation. The video Marcus Chen recorded lasted 4 minutes and 37 seconds. He posted it to Twitter at 9:03 a.m. with the caption, Black woman in professional clothes being arrested outside Richmond Federal Courthouse for literally no reason. The video was clear. The audio was clear. Every moment was documented. Simone Duvall standing calmly, asking to show identification. Officer Delacroix refusing, demanding she turn around. Simone complying, hands on the wall, briefcase at her feet. Officers searching her, removing her phone, her wallet, her federal credentials. Simone asking repeatedly why she was being detained. No answer given. Handcuffs applied at 8:58 a.m. Catherine Liang demanding they release her, identifying Simone as a federal employee with scheduled testimony. Officer Delacroix saying Simone matched the description of a suspect. Liang asking what suspect. No response. The video ended with Simone Duvall, hands cuffed behind her back, being walked down the courthouse steps toward a patrol car. Her briefcase remained on the ground. Her hearing was scheduled to start in 2 minutes. By 9:15 a.m., the video had 50,000 views. By 10:02 a.m., it had 500,000. By noon, it had 5 million. By evening, 17 million people had watched a Department of Justice attorney get arrested for showing up to work. Simone Duvall was taken to Richmond Police Central Booking. She was fingerprinted. She was photographed. She was placed in a holding cell for 1 hour and 43 minutes. At 10:41 a.m., she was released without charges. The official explanation from the Richmond Police Department: Simone had matched the description of a suspect wanted in connection with a theft at a nearby jewelry store. The suspect was described as a black female, approximately 5'6", wearing dark clothing. The problem with that explanation became immediately obvious. The theft in question had occurred 3 days earlier. The suspect had been apprehended 2 days earlier and was already in custody. This information was available in the police database. Officer Delacroix had access to that database. The suspect was 5'2" and had been wearing a red jacket. Simone Duvall was 5'8" and wearing a navy suit. The suspect was 47 years old. Simone was 32. The jewelry store was 8 blocks away. Simone had been walking toward a federal courthouse with a briefcase containing legal documents. The Department of Justice moved quickly. By 2:00 p.m. that afternoon, the DOJ's Office of the Inspector General had opened an inquiry. By 4:00 p.m., the Civil Rights Division had issued a statement. By 6:00 p.m., 3 members of Congress had called for an investigation. Simone Duvall gave one statement to the press that evening. It was brief and precise. She described arriving at the courthouse to perform her duties as a federal employee. She described being stopped, searched, and detained without justification. She described being handcuffed and arrested while attempting to show her credentials. She described spending nearly 2 hours in custody before being released without charges or explanation. She did not speculate about motive. She stated facts. The facts were damning enough. The investigation that followed would uncover a pattern. Officer Marcus Delacroix had been the subject of 4 previous complaints, all filed by black residents, all alleging racial profiling or excessive force. 3 had been dismissed as unsubstantiated. 1 had resulted in a written reprimand. Officer Isaiah Petros had 2 complaints on his record, both dismissed. Body camera footage from that morning existed. Richmond PD policy required all officers on courthouse detail to wear active cameras. The footage from Delacroix's camera showed the encounter from his perspective. It also showed something else. At 8:46 a.m., 1 minute before Simone reached the courthouse steps, Delacroix had turned to Petros and said something. The audio was faint, but analyzable. Enhanced audio would later confirm his words. Here we go. He had seen Simone approaching. He had made a decision. The encounter had not been random. The Richmond Police Department released a statement on October 16th, 24 hours after the incident. The department expressed regret for any inconvenience caused to Ms. Duvall. The statement cited the ongoing theft investigation as context for heightened security measures. The statement emphasized the department's commitment to professional conduct and community trust. The statement did not address the false suspect description. The statement did not address the 4 previous complaints against Officer Delacroix. The statement did not address why a credentialed federal employee had been handcuffed and detained while attempting to enter a courthouse to perform her legal duties. The statement did not explain why body camera audio suggested premeditation. By the time the statement was released, the story had already exploded beyond Richmond. National news networks had picked it up. Legal analysts were discussing it. Civil rights organizations were organizing. The hashtag #JusticeForSimone was trending worldwide. The federal investigation expanded. The DOJ Inspector General's office subpoenaed Richmond PD records. They requested personnel files for both officers. They requested all body camera footage from the previous 6 months. They requested dispatch logs and incident reports. What they found was a problem far larger than one incident. Richmond PD's courthouse security detail had stopped, questioned, or detained 47 people in the previous 12 months. 39 were black, 39 out of 47. The courthouse served a city that was 54% white. The disparity could not be explained by random chance. Of those 39 black individuals stopped, 12 had been credentialed attorneys or federal employees. 5 had been detained despite immediately showing identification. 3 had been arrested and later released without charges. Simone Duvall was not an anomaly. She was a pattern. The case against Officer Marcus Delacroix was built carefully. The evidence was overwhelming, but the legal strategy required precision. The Department of Justice does not bring charges against law enforcement lightly. The standard is high. The proof must be definitive. The investigation took 4 months. On February 12th, federal prosecutors announced charges against Delacroix: deprivation of rights under color of law, false arrest, and filing false reports. The charges carried a maximum sentence of 15 years. Officer Isaiah Petros was placed on administrative leave, but not charged. The determination was made that he had followed his partner's lead without initiating the unlawful detention. The Richmond Police Department placed both officers on unpaid suspension pending the outcome of the federal case. The trial began on June 3rd in U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia. The prosecution was led by Assistant U.S. Attorney David Okonkwo, a former civil rights attorney with 18 years of experience. The defense strategy was predictable. Delacroix's attorney argued split-second decision-making in a high-security environment. He argued that Officer Delacroix had acted in good faith based on available information. He argued that any mistakes were honest errors, not civil rights violations. The prosecution presented the body camera audio, enhanced, analyzed, time-stamped. Here we go. The prosecution presented the personnel file. 4. Previous complaints. A documented pattern of behavior toward black residents. The prosecution presented the dispatch records. The suspect Delacroix claimed Simone resembled had been in custody for 2 days. That information had been available in the system Delacroix had access to. The prosecution presented the courthouse security statistics, 39 out of 47. The prosecution presented testimony from 3 of the 12 credentialed black professionals who had been stopped by Delacroix's detail. Each described similar encounters. Each described being treated as suspicious, despite clear identification and legitimate business. The prosecution presented Simone Duvall. She testified for 47 minutes. She described her background, her education, her work at the Department of Justice. She described arriving at the courthouse that morning with her briefcase and her credentials. She described asking repeatedly to show her identification. She described being handcuffed, searched, and detained for nearly 2 hours. She did not cry. She did not raise her voice. She presented facts. The defense attorney asked if she believed race had been a factor. She said she could not know what was in Officer Delacroix's mind. She could only describe what had happened. The facts described themselves. The jury deliberated for 9 hours across 2 days. On June 19th, they returned a verdict: guilty on all counts. Officer Marcus Delacroix was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution to Simone Duvall in the amount of $75,000. He would serve 3 years before being eligible for parole. His law enforcement certification was permanently revoked. Officer Isaiah Petros resigned from the Richmond Police Department. He would not face criminal charges, but his career in law enforcement was over. The Richmond Police Department implemented reforms. Body cameras became mandatory for all courthouse security personnel with automatic activation protocols. Stops and detentions at the courthouse entrance now required supervisory approval and documentation. All courthouse security officers underwent implicit bias training, though training alone does not change culture. The department hired a civilian oversight coordinator. Whether that position would have real authority remained to be seen. Simone Duvall returned to her work at the Department of Justice. She continued her research on employment discrimination. She testified in the Hargrove case 6 months later. Her analysis contributed to a favorable ruling for the plaintiffs. She did not speak publicly about the incident again, except once, in a law school symposium on civil rights enforcement. A student asked how she had processed what happened. Her answer was direct. You do your job. You don't let them make you smaller. The video Marcus Chen recorded that October morning remains online. 17 million views have become 23 million. It is used in law, school classes, in civil rights trainings, in journalism programs studying documentation and accountability. It shows a woman in a navy suit trying to enter a courthouse to do her job. It shows what happened when she tried. It shows why documentation matters. It shows why cases like this cannot be ignored. Simone Duvall had shown up to work. She had done everything right. She had complied with every demand. She had remained calm and professional. She had still been handcuffed and detained. The briefcase she carried that morning sits in her office now, a reminder that credentials and competence are not always protection. But they are still worth having. The work is still worth doing. The system that failed her that morning is the same system that eventually delivered accountability. Imperfect, insufficient, but not absent. That matters. It has to.